So the purpose of this presentation today is so that you guys can learn a little bit more about the Global Recycled Standard certification that we're pursuing for our ECO100 product line. And this is so that you can speak more knowledgeably to customers who are requesting this standard, and also in some cases educate customers on what we're offering here. So this standard fits in with our 2025 environmental goal of getting to 50% recycled polyester content by 2025. It's a traceability initiative that will ensure our customers that what we're claiming to be recycled polyester is actually recycled material. So the ECO100 product line is 100% recycled polyester, and that's at least 80% post-consumer content. Post-consumer content is what you would think of in your home recycling, so water bottles, plastic containers, things of that nature. And then up to 20% pre-consumer is also called post-industrial, which is what you would think of when we have our thread waste at our facilities that gets sold to a recycler. So the environmental selling points is the consumer waste transformed into a consumer product. And since this material requires less energy to produce, it's a Scope 3 emission improvement for your customers who are starting to track that. And this year we've also joined the Science Based Target Initiative and are working on our own Scope 3 calculations. So the Global Recycled Standard is not the only standard of its kind. There are also similar standards that are out there, but it's definitely the most extensive. So a comparable standard would be the Recycled Content Standard, also put out by Textile Exchange. And the Recycled Content Standard, or RCS, is being used at our Cone Denim facilities. It's a minimum of 5% recycled content, and there are no chemical, social, or environmental considerations. The Global Recycled Standard, or GRS, you have to have at least 20% recycled content. You have to comply with their approved chemical list in your manufacturing process. There are social requirements that you have to meet, which is like our code of conduct, and then environmental considerations like tracking your air emissions and wastewater effluent. So the Global Recycled Standard is put out by this third-party company called Textile Exchange, and they are the ones who develop the criteria and issue licenses. And then there are another group of companies called certification bodies that actually do the audits and provide our transaction certificates, which I'll get more into in just a minute. So the goals of creating a standard like this is to track and trace recycled input materials, provide customers with a tool to make informed decisions, and then have positive impacts through all of the criteria that they set as requirements. So like I mentioned in the first slide about GRS, the requirements that they have are environmental management system, chemical management system, monitoring our energy, water use, wastewater, etc., and comply with their social criteria to protect the health and well-being of our workers in the supply chain. So this is possibly the most confusing piece of these certification systems. The scope certificate is facility specific. So every facility that we are producing ECO100 products are either in the process of or have obtained scope certificates. The scope certificate is saying that that facility does all of these requirements and is approved to produce the recycled content. They also make sure in the audits that we're separating our recycled content from our virgin or other manufacturing materials so that they don't get mixed. And then the transaction certificates are actually providing the traceability of the recycled material. So if you receive in 100 pounds of recycled material and then ship out 10 pounds, that's how the certification body is keeping track of the material all the way through. So with a transaction certificate, you can, if you wanted to, trace all the way back to the recycler through invoice numbers and things of that nature, product identifiers and content levels. So the scope certificates, the information that it will have is the type of material. So for us, it's sewing thread, the composition. In this case, it's 100% post-consumer. Other things you may see are 80 to 100% post-consumer and 0 to 20% pre-consumer. For our decor products, I think we may add those to these certificates, and those will be 60% recycled content, and then the cotton would not be recycled. And then it also has the location, facility location. So that's going to be specific to where your customer is sourcing material from. On this example, it's A&E Vietnam. And these we can provide at no cost to the customer. So this is a business decision that we've made to obtain these GRS certifications for our facilities, stating that we comply with all of the GRS requirements. And if customers are simply interested as to whether we're capable of doing GRS with our recycled products, we can just send this to them, no problem, no cost. But if they are wanting to claim GRS on their own materials, so their end product, putting it on a hang tag or a label, then they're going to need transaction certificates. So transaction certificates cost about $30 to $45 each, just depending on the certifying body and where they're located in the world. There's different conversion rates that I've seen. And for our incoming material, so the recycled fiber that our suppliers are giving to us to convert, we are paying for the transaction certificates. It's to be determined how we're going to handle our customers paying for the transaction certificate. So there will be more information coming about that from the sales leadership. The transaction certificates, as I mentioned earlier, they'll have invoice number, exactly how much material is contained in the case, how much we shipped with the packing list, and the type of material. So like I mentioned earlier as well, this actually tracks the product all the way back to the initial recycler, and it has to have a mass balance submitted with it, which I'll touch on the next slide as well. So really what I want to drive home on this slide is that there is a cost to getting these transaction certificates. And if a customer is only wanting to purchase something like 5 cones of thread, then, that's a good time to have a conversation about, okay, well, if you're wanting to claim it, that's, that, and you want to accept that extra cost, then that's fine. But if you just, want to have the knowledge that it's recycled, and here's our scope certificate and confirmation that we're producing what we say we're producing. So just to give you an idea of what the transaction certificate requires, this will all be done by the plants who are producing the material, but they have to send in a packing list, a mass balance calculation, raw material invoice, raw material transaction certificates, and the sales invoices to our certification body. And then the certifying body verifies and issues the customer's transaction certificate to us, and then we can go ahead and send that to the customer. That was the end of the recorded presentation. I wanted to take some time and go over some questions that we received during the Zoom presentations, in case any of you who are listening have similar questions. So a few more details on the transaction certificates. There is up to a 6-month period to request transaction certificates on any given invoice. There can be 1 to 10 invoices on a transaction certificate given that they are shipping to the same location. You should ask customers as soon as possible if they need a transaction certificate with shipments. Some brands have required them, and others are just satisfied to see that we have the GRS certification, and you can prove that by sending them the scope certificates. The transaction certificates to customers will be coming from distribution centers. We're working to get all of our facilities fully certified. You will need to know where your customers' goods are coming from in order to request transaction certificates. And the transaction certificates usually take about 1 to 2 weeks to receive from the certifying body. Our certified facilities include Vietnam, Hang Mae, Hua Mae, Dong Mae, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vardaman Unit 1, 1A, and Unit 2. Gütermann, Germany will have theirs by the end of the year. We are working on the Americas, but will not be able to complete that certification until the certifying bodies reopen travel restrictions due to coronavirus. So we'll keep everyone updated as to when that becomes available. The Americas would include US, Costa Rica, and Honduras. As far as competitors go, Coates does have GRS certification on their ECO100 line, but not all of our competitors are participating in this program, and it does give us a competitive advantage to be a part of it, as well as, for some brands and retailers, it really opens up the conversation and is a requirement if you're working with recycled polyester. Thank you for your time and attention listening to this presentation. I've included my contact information at the bottom of the slide. Should you have any other questions about the GRS certification process or our sustainability initiatives as a whole, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thank you.